So let's put our money where our mouth is and start involving you guys right here and right now. So I would ask you to please use the reflection app to share those values with us. Oh, there we go, first one. Quality, that's a good one. Integrity, that's a classic. Very important value, makes a big difference for your personal relationships. Compassion, loyalty, open-mindedness, empathy, love. And right here, oh, that's my name, which actually means heart in Turkish, so I think we can put that into the compassion part. One thing that I think is already very interesting is the fact that most of those values have something to do with interaction with other people. And that is something we'll come back to later. Same goes for respect, community, justice, trust. Okay, let's move on from this. I'm going to talk about how to shape society by shaping yourself, by using your values. And I want to introduce you to a little bit to what the scientists think our values are, because in preparation for this talk, I kind of went, scoured Google Scholar, and looked at different papers that analyze the values of Generation Y, which is a pretty messy thing, actually, because first and foremost, nobody really agrees 100% where Generation Y is. Some say from 1980 to 2000, some say from 1980 to 1995. It's a wild mixture. The same goes for the values, and you can already see some of the values you see here are values that yourself are said are important. We have trust, we have tolerance, we have social responsibility. We also have the work-life balance. An interesting fact about trust, I found papers that said that our generation is more trustful than the generation of our parents, but also the opposite. So there you go. Also, some say we are impatient, others say we are valuing well-organized task management, which means we are impatient. Also, one very interesting, entertaining point that I found was that one of the papers said that we, as a generation, consider ourselves as cool. If you didn't know. Here a little reminder what consider means, how it is defined, because now you know there are some scientists that think that we are really hard thinking about if we're cool. So why are values important? Well, values determine the way we interact with each other. They determine the way how we support each other and how we punish each other. If one of you or two of you would stand up now and leave, most people would turn around, look weird, kind of make sure that they don't support what they just saw because a norm is broken. Where does this norm come from? Because, we've not talked about this, right? When you came in, nobody went to you and was like, hey, you, please, really don't leave in the middle of a talk. That would be, that'd be kind of mean. No, it's a classic value. It's something that we all know how it works. And society is made up of those moments, right? And that's important to realize because also the people that are at the top, politicians, CEOs, also they have families, they have people that they know, and they have people that judge them by their actions, judge them by their values. Same goes for criminals. I will put myself out there and say, if there wouldn't be any successful criminals, probably nobody would try it out. So the values that we live, and that's an important part, because values come into existence, they gain strength by being lived. If you see somebody living a certain value and it works for them, then you might adopt it. And this is how our values create our society. By every little decision, by every little interaction, where it's made clear through behavior what matters. Because our behavior shows our values, and our values determine our behavior. So I saw your values, and I've also introduced you to what the scientists have been talking about. And if you just look at that, everything looks pretty good, right? We all care about truth. We all care about justice. We all care about compassion for each other. So where's the problem? Well, the problem is that things aren't working. There you go. Well, the problem is that that isn't the whole truth, right? Because, we have problems in society. We also have problems around the world. And I will put myself out there and say that probably most people in developed countries would put up those values and say, well, that's really important. But do we actually live those values? Well, I think to a large extent we don't. I think we like to put them out there and we like to say, yeah, of course, honesty is important, compassion is important. But is that really what we focus on? I mean, think about yourself. How many of the things you want to get done do you get done? Is it the whole to-do list, or is it maybe the top 3-4 points? So if compassion and truth and all those things aren't on the top 1, 2, 3, 4 points for you, might not be that well translated in the end of the day. And I think everybody kind of knows this, that there's a lot of things that openly everybody agrees on, but then, you know, in the small little moments where you can maybe get an advantage by not being so honest, you know, most people understand if somebody cheats on a test. I do. I think that's okay. But what does that say about our values? Well, I think, again, there's a difference. And there's a problem with that. Because, of course, compassion, justice, those things are important. Those things are important for ourselves, but also for other people. But what happens if those things aren't actually our number one priority, but other things are? Well, we don't always follow through with them. And then what happens? We spend a lot of time and energy doing things that don't follow those values. Is that good for us? Is that good for others? Well, I'll give you the answer. No, it's not. It's really not. It's one of the problems. We are in a society where we have depression, where we have burnout, which is crazy. We have everything that we need. People live long. We have enough food. We have enough drinks, really. But still, we don't make it work. I mean, I don't know what your impression is. I've spent a lot of time listening to people, very different ages, different places, listening to their stories. What do their stories tell me? Well, the stories tell me that a lot of people aren't happy. In the end of the day, when they're home, when they're alone, when they sit there, they're not happy, they're not content. Which for me is not a surprise, because the values that are being lived aren't the one that can get us there. And a little bit more to that later. But it basically leads to a society where we not only exploit each other, but we exploit ourselves. If you have ever spent a lot of time on something, and then afterwards didn't feel fulfilled, then you know what I mean. I mean, I just finished my bachelor thesis, and that's pretty much how I felt after that. So, what do I mean with the lack of fulfillment? Well, we are social beings. That is what we are. If you go a little bit into science, it's actually an interesting correlation, because monkeys have bigger brains. The bigger the group is that they have to socialize in. For monkeys, we have pretty big brains. And of course, correlation doesn't imply causation, but there's strong evidence to assume that we have our brains to be able to deal with each other. So yeah, dealing with each other is not easy. But it is also important, because we each other are what can make ourselves content. Nobody can be content alone. Just think about it. Think about, put yourself in your mind on a lonely island, and then what matters? Probably not much, because you can't really share anything with anybody. So I personally, through my work and my talking through people, and also through my life experience, would say the things that matter the most is acceptance, being accepted, being loved, being cared for. That makes a difference for me and for the people that I've met. In the end of every story, that's what it's about. I've talked to influential politicians, CEOs. I haven't heard one that said, well, the relationship to my wife is pretty bad and I don't see my kids often, but this car, man, this makes me really happy every day. But funnily enough, I've heard it the other way around quite a lot. So what are the values that we should look into? Well, I mean, again, we kind of know those already, and they go with those needs. And those needs are even supported by scientific evidence. There's been, in the self-determination theory, a well-known theory in psychology that has done a lot of research into well-being across cultures, across ages, has found over and over again 3 predictors, which are autonomy, competence, relatedness, basically means your relationship to other people. And those are, of course, things that get nourished very well from values like justice, truth, compassion. But only if those values are our number one priority, and if those values are lived. Because again, our behavior shows our values. What do we spend our time on? What do we spend our effort on? Have you spent night after night working on an essay, prepare for an exam, putting countless hours into it? Well, have you put the same effort in your friendships? If you think something is wrong, your friend didn't really understand you right, did you then sit them down, talk things through? And if that didn't work the first time, did you then meet up again? Did you make sure that the relationship works? Do you call somebody out when you think that they don't represent the values that they pretend to represent? I've been in classrooms, and it was very clear that the way we were doing things at that point didn't really benefit anybody. And I spoke up against it. It didn't make me very popular, I can tell you that much. Funnily enough, if it's about exams, if people think the examination is unfair, yeah, then people are all about it. And then I'm wondering, what do you really care about? That superficial evaluation that doesn't really mean anything in the end of the day? Or about actually using your time, the little that you have, before your journey here ends? So what do we do? What do we do about that? Well, I can say for one thing for sure, it's not going to blow your mind because it's not easy, it's not spectacular, it's not fireworks. And I think that's maybe one of the things that we should really realize. Also, I think it's an important thing to realize early. It's not about the big throws. It's not about the successes. I like to call success an event. It's nice if it happens, sure. But if you build your life around that, you're going to have a lot of time in the middle that's not really going to be fulfilling. So what is it about? Well, it's about living those values. What does it mean? It means to represent them in the little situations, when you talk to people, when you talk to your friends, when you talk to your parents, when you talk to your boss. Stand up for those values. Then you're living them. And yeah, that's not easy, no. You'll upset some people for sure. And you'll probably also have to deal a lot with yourself, because I've noticed that the reason why a lot of people don't support values like truth and honesty is because they're insecure. And of course, that's a valid reason, but it's with fear, right? We have to engage with it. And the more you do it, the better it becomes. And actually, if you do it for a long time and you find people that share the same values, you can get some really beautiful relationships. And you will really understand how this crazy journey that we are all sharing is for people. You'll understand a lot about yourself. You'll understand a lot about others. But it's not going to come overnight. It's long, hard work. It's a long, hard process. So realize your freedom. Realize that you, in the end of the day, determine what you do at any minute. You're here for a limited amount of time. It's up to you what you do with that. Nobody is going to judge you in 10,000, 100,000 years for what you did or didn't do. It's totally up to you. Put yourself out there. Really do. Because, again, we have a limited amount of time. Might as well do something with it. And if you put yourself out there, you're not only making the experiences that you need to discover yourself, but you're also giving other people the orientation that they need. Because, again, values can only be lived. And by living those values yourself, you show others, look, this is important, and it's not something that I say, it's actually something I care about. And by that, you will also discover what in life fulfills you. People always ask me, like, what should I do? Like, how does life work? What makes me happy? Go out there, do things, talk to people that talk about things that they really think and feel about, and you'll probably figure it out. And also, big secret, it also changes. So develop your principles, stand up for them. Really do. I really mean that. It's really important. Because what I said before about values, the values build our society, yes, that's true. We can't expect our society not to exploit weaker countries, weaker nations. We can't expect companies not to exploit weak people if we ourselves don't protect ourselves and them by making sure what really matters. See the people around you. For me, it's quite overwhelming if I think about the fact that every single one of you has their own dreams, their own ambitions, their own anxieties, their own fears. And that doesn't make life easier, no. But it makes it a lot more real. And everywhere we have to deal with people, realize those things. People walk along the street as if they'd be alone, but they're not. It's silly. We're in the 21st century. Life isn't easy, life is complicated, it's overwhelming, but we can make it work if we do it together. So, don't be sheep. It's not that I don't like sheep. I lived in New Zealand for a year and sheep are actually pretty cute. But sheep are not going to change climate change, I can tell you that much. Sheep are not going to speak up to their CEO. They're not going to speak up to their friends. If you don't hold your friends responsible, who should? Same goes for your parents, your kids. And because I've said before, it's a long and difficult process. It's about repeatedly standing up for the values that you hold. I want to leave you with the following words. Excellence is not an art. Excellence is a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. By repeatedly standing up for our values in front of ourselves and in front of other people, we can change this society. We can change ourselves. And I hope we do. Thank you very much.